don't know why, they just remember. Remember that they want to be in here.
What the hell are they?
They're us, that's all. There's no more room in hell.
What?
This is something my granddaddy used to tell us. You know Macumba? Voodoo. Granddad was a priest in Trinidad. He used to tell us, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
There is a reason that Warning still feels older than the film it came from. It does not sound like entertainment. It sounds like judgment. It sounds like something spoken in a room where the lights are low, the windows are boarded, and every person inside has already heard the dead moving somewhere in the dark. Do not take it as a literal explanation of where the dead came from. Take it as accusation. It suggests that the world has produced more ruin than it can bury, more violence than it can excuse, and more consequence than it can keep hidden. The dead returning is not only an outbreak, it feels like something sealed beneath the surface has broken upward, and now the living are being forced to look at what they thought had been put away. The first mistake is to confuse simplicity with safety. A slow body in the road can look almost beneath fear from a distance. It has no strategy we can admire, no cleverness we can recognize, no voice arguing for power. But some of the worst things in human life are crude. War can be senseless and still ruin the mind of the person who survives it. The dead belong to that same kind of terror. They do not need wisdom. They do not need a plan. They only need to remain close enough, long enough, for the living to understand that something simple can still become unbearable. That is why the slow dead disturb us more than they should. A living person survives by counting. Hours until daylight, distance to the next door, food left in the cabinet, strength left in the body, trust left in the room. Every hour takes something from the living, and the longer fear lasts, the more it turns intelligence into argument, love into weakness, guilt into bad judgment, and exhaustion into danger. The dead belong to another kind of time. They have already crossed the line that every living person is still walking toward. Hunger does not weaken them in the human sense. Fear does not cloud them. Shame does not stop them. They are past the point where hope is required. A living person has to keep finding reasons to continue. The dead only continue. That is how they enter the mind before they enter the room. They stand outside while the living decide who should lead, who should be trusted, who is hiding a wound, who is too afraid to admit what they saw, and who still believes the body at the glass might remember its name. The dead are patient because patience costs them nothing. The living are the ones paying for every minute. A stranger is easier to survive. A shape in the distance can be reduced to danger. But the dead do not always come as strangers. They arrive wearing the remains of ordinary life. A work shirt, a wedding ring, a jacket chosen for weather that no longer matters. The body keeps carrying evidence after the person has disappeared from command, and that evidence becomes a weapon against the mind. This is where survival becomes cruel. The face still belongs to memory. The hands may be the hands that held yours. The body may have once sat at your table, called you a name, stood beside you in a photograph, or left a room expecting to return. One part of the mind understands the threat, while another part reaches backward toward the person. recognition becomes dangerous because it arrives before acceptance. Before the dead became crowds filling highways and stores, the older fear was more intimate. It was the fear of a body continuing after the will had been taken from it. In Haitian voodoo, the zombie was not born as the modern corpse searching for flesh. The deeper terror was a human being reduced to a body under another force, a body that could move, obey, work, and continue, while the self no longer belonged to it. That thought is colder than death. Death gives the living a wound, but at least the wound has a shape. Someone was here. Now they are gone. The body remains, yet the person is no longer expected to answer through it. The zombie refuses that mercy. It keeps the body active after the person has vanished from command. Once that idea enters the room, the question changes. If a body breaks through a door and kills, what committed the act? The person, the hunger, the infection, or whatever force has taken hold of the remains? A person can be blamed because a person can choose, can feel guilt, can know that a line has been crossed. The dead give us the act without the conscience. The harm is real. The body is present, but the guilt has nowhere to settle. That is morally terrifying because the dead force judgment onto the living while carrying none of it themselves. The living must decide when mercy has become dangerous. The living must decide whether the body in front of them is still owed the dignity of the person it used to be. The living must survive the moment and then live afterward with what survival required. This is why the old images still hold power, even when the effects are cheap. The terror is not only in the corpse. It is in the room full of living people trying to stay human, while surrounded by bodies that no longer answer to personhood. The living bring the old world with them wherever they hide. Names, loyalties, prayers, shame, family, memory, conscience. They carry these things because if they stop mattering, then the world outside has already entered the room. Human beings became powerful because we could continue. We were never the fastest creature. Speed belonged to others. Our gift was slower. We followed, endured, remembered, gathered, and turned distance into pressure. The dead inherit that persistence after the person has been removed from it. And that is why they feel like a punishment made from our own nature. They are not frightening because they are completely alien. They are frightening because they keep some of what made humanity dangerous in the first place. Endurance becomes pursuit. Numbers become pressure. Roads become passages. Cities built for closeness become places where ruin travels easily. The dead do not need to invent a world. They use the one we built for each other. That is why the dead feel like both a force of nature and a human consequence. They move through the opening civilization made for itself. Every hallway, stairwell, street, doorway, shelter, hospital, church, and store was designed around the human body. When the person leaves and the body remains, the whole world is still shaped to receive it. Every society has had to find some way to handle the dead, because a body changes the room. People lower their voices around it. They move differently. The ordinary world pauses. We remove the dead from daily life not only because of disease or decay, but because the living need a line. The dead must be somewhere. The living must be somewhere else. Grief may cross that line. Memory may cross it. Prayer may cross it. But the body is supposed to remain where it has been placed. When the dead rise, that line fails. What returns does not return with answers. It does not explain where it went. It does not confirm heaven, punishment, emptiness, soul, judgment, mercy, or nothingness. It gives no testimony. It only moves. That is what would break people psychologically. Human beings can live with death being unknown as long as death stays stable. A grave is painful, but it remains where it is. A coffin is unbearable, but it gives the unbearable thing a shape. The dead rising removes that stability. Death is no longer final, but it has not become meaningful. It has become unpredictable. Fear can point to something. Fear says there is a body at the door. Dread says the rules that made the world understandable have failed, and the body at the door is only the first proof. That is why empty places matter in this nightmare. A store with the light still on. A church after evening service. A school hallway after everyone has gone home. A bar after last call. These places are not frightening because they are abandoned. They are frightening because they were built for human presence, and without that presence, they seem to accuse the living of being temporary. A bar at closing time can still feel merciful because something happened there. People came, spoke, laughed, argued, embarrassed themselves, won little victories, lost little battles, and went home to rest. It belonged to the present. The dead have no present. They do not gather to make a night. They do not return home with a story. They do not rest after the room empties. They continue past the point where human action becomes memory. That is the deepest violence they carry. They remove the present from the world. The living are unfinished creatures. Every ordinary day points somewhere else, toward work, toward home, toward an argument that has not happened yet, toward a prayer, toward a meal, toward someone waiting on the other side of a door. Life is always leaning into the future. The dead have no future. Whatever they once hoped for ended long ago. Yet the body continues to move through streets and rooms that were built for people with plans. That contradiction is what makes them unbearable. And so, imagine yourself in that room. The windows are covered. The lights are low. Every sound from outside forces the people around you to stop speaking and listen. The danger is not only the body at the door. It is the realization that time is no longer working in your favor. Every hour asks something of the living. Every hour takes something away. The dead ask for nothing in return. They carry no shame, no doubt, no exhaustion that can persuade them to stop. They remain, while the living struggle to hold on to the habits and meanings that made them human in the first place. That is why the slow dead inspire dread. They do not arrive like a natural disaster that destroys everything at once. They wait for fatigue to settle into the mind. They wait for grief to cloud judgment. They wait for the moment when survival begins to feel heavier than surrender. When the door finally gives way, it will not be because the dead possessed some hidden strength. It will be because the living spent theirs.